What's going on? Welcome into another episode of Always Talkin Ball. Tyler Noe is here. Lance Barton is here. We are ready to talk week 2 of college football, but a bit of news first. You'll see on the bottom right corner of the screen if you're watching YouTube, we got ourselves a brand new partnership here with Always Talkin Ball. And you may have heard of them, one of the biggest third-party ticketing brokers out there. SeatGeek is now a partner of Always Talkin Ball. And obviously, you know, that comes with perks for you guys who are listening. We know you're looking for tickets, looking to go to some games this year. We can get you $20 off if you type in the promo code Always Talkin Ball. One word, Always Talkin Ball. Punch that in at the checkout. You get $20 off of your SeatGeek purchase. So we're happy to have them on board. We still got Home Field on board. Head over to homefieldapparel.com. You know the deal there with ATB15 as the promo code. Lance, let's get into previewing some games here. First, a bit of news. I got a bit of news for you. I'm not sure if you've heard this one. DJ Lagway starting for the Florida Gators this Saturday. Graham Mertz did sustain a concussion against Miami. Florida's playing Samford. Question is, does DJ Lagway, does he give the job up? Does Graham Mertz get Wally pipped here?
It's possible. It's possible if Lagway's as good as, advertised. I know he kind of got thrown into the fire there last week, but with him being, the starter all week long, like going through all the game prep as the starter, being the main focal point of the game plan, I'm interested to see what he looks like. Samford, though, is one that has given some, P4 teams some trouble. They run an offense that is like the old Mike Leach type air raid offense, so they're a little interesting to deal with. Old Samford there in Beham, Alabama.
Didn't they have a game with Florida a couple of years ago, like 70-50 or something?
Yeah, I think it was with they had one like that with them. They had a tough game with Florida State in the recent past as well. So yeah, they've given teams some trouble, man. So it'd be interesting. And what's the mindset of this Florida team right now? Do they get up off the mat and play angry, or do they act like a wounded dog that just stays down? I don't know. I'd be interested to see what they look like. I know that the Florida fans, apparently, I've seen stuff all over social media that they're starting GoFundMes to try to. I saw that it said the title of the GoFundMe was "Send Billy Napier to early retirement." Let's send Billy Napier off to early retirement. So, man, that's wild, man. After one game, season. I know it's a culmination of 3 years, but still, but
injury too. Injury helps. So
right,
we'll see what happens to the Gators this weekend against Samford. But enough of that. Let's move on to the games. Let's start with the big one in Ann Arbor. Big noon kickoff. Of course, it's a noon kickoff for a game like this. Why wouldn't it be? But Texas is going on the road to play Michigan. Number 3 versus number 10, but number 5 versus number 11 in the Always Talkin Bowl. I'm going to call it the ATB better than the AP poll, better than the AP top 12 from now on.
I like it. Hey, first question I have to ask about this game. This is the most important thing about this game. Is this one of the best uniform matchups of the season?
Man, if you go back to our best uniform drafts, I can't remember what picks they were, but I know they were high up there. Yep. And like the Texas all whites are going to look so nice on there with the maize and blue, with the Jordans.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I just had to get that out there because that's very important, obviously, in this game.
Yeah, Texas comes in, man. Before the season started, they were 4.5 point favorites, I think, maybe 3.5, and now it's all the way up to 7.5. Game's going to be at noon on Fox. The Big House is going to be rocking. I mean, it doesn't matter what time of day. The Ohio State game is played every year at noon, right? And that's always, a packed house.
I'll hear Mr. Brightside all the way here in St. Louis.
Yeah. So it's going to be packed. Man, to break down this one, I don't even know where to start. I mean, you got Quinn Ewers on one side, and you got Davis Warren on the other. Obviously, the edge goes to Texas there. Other than that, I mean, Michigan might have other than wide receivers, obviously, quarterback and wide receivers. But other than that, Michigan might have an edge, like at running back. They might have an edge on the defense as a whole, especially the secondary.
Yeah, definitely an edge at running back. Definitely an edge on the defensive line. Linebackers, it might be Texas. Linebackers might be. Defensive backs, Michigan. But the question I have is what did Michigan show week 1?
Yeah.
Did they keep a really? I know they were trying to break in, a new quarterback. So why would you be so vanilla or whatever? But like also too, you are still like with Davis Warren and in that Fresno game. That I'm sure that they thought that they could just roll that defense out there and win that game. And if they were holding things back offensively, then obviously it was smart to do that with Texas on deck. But I don't know, man. What I would like to see here, what I want to see here is, can Texas, like we know what Michigan's going to want to do. They're going to want to show up and play bully ball and test the will of Texas. And that defensive line is going to want to maul Texas up front. And can they rattle and get after Quinn Ewers? Will Sark have a game plan that tries to get the ball out quick and early to those receivers? And can Texas hold up? Can the offensive line, which Texas, going into the year, it's the belief that Texas has one of the better offensive lines in the entire country. So we're going to find out this Saturday against that daunted Michigan front. Because I know Michigan lost a lot to the NFL, but they've still got one of the best defensive fronts, if not the best defensive front in the entire country. So this is that's what I'm most interested to see here. And obviously Texas, with the injuries they had at tailback preseason wise, I just don't know. I mean, if Texas can run the football, and that's all she wrote, Michigan's in trouble. But I don't know that they can. I don't know that anybody's just going to line up and run left, run right, and be able to have a lot of success in the run game against that Michigan D front. And I don't think Wink Martindale is going to allow that. That's also, I'm so intrigued to see. You've got one of the best play callers in all of the sport in Sark going up against Wink Martindale as a DC. The cat and mouse game between those two coaches and those two staffs are going to be fantastic on those two sides of the ball. But also, too, Texas's new wide receivers that they replaced A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy with Silas Bolden and Isaiah Bond from Alabama and Ryan Wingo, the true freshman. What do they look like against that really good Michigan secondary? But like I said, if they can get pressure, because I don't think Texas is going to be able to run the ball. If they can get pressure on Ewers, then this game could get interesting real quick. I may be way off here, but I expect a low-scoring game here. I think Sark knows. I think that his defense can hold down Davis Warren or whoever's playing quarterback at Michigan, and I think it's going to be more of a style of play that Michigan likes more than likely. Michigan needs it to be that to win this game. They need to ugly this game up and turn it in to just a backyard brawl type street fight. And obviously Texas wants to turn those athletes loose on the perimeter and be able to sling it around a little bit with Ewers and those receivers and let Michigan have to play from behind and have to throw the football with Davis Warren and Orji. What are your thoughts on this Michigan offensive line? Because I caught a little bit of that Fresno deal and watched a little bit of replay of it, and that was the number one thing that jumped off the page for me. It's just one game, but that did not look like the Michigan offensive line I've watched the last 3 years.
Nope. Saw a lot of guys getting blown off the ball by the defensive line. Yeah. I mean, even saw an I formation and a fullback kind of getting stuffed at the goal line. They did not look as good, and that's probably more concerning. Obviously, the fact we don't know how much they showed, but it's kind of how they looked. They didn't look as great. Yeah, this has a feel of a 20-13 type game, maybe 23-13, maybe 2019, like 2 years ago against Alabama when Texas played them. That D line for Texas, last year we talked a lot about Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat.
Yeah,
but we didn't talk a lot about them. Before that Alabama game, when they kind of just showed up and they were like, okay, these dudes are game wreckers. Like they made a real difference. Will someone from Texas who has replaced those guys, will they show up in this game and stuff Donovan Edwards in the backfield and, put pressure on Davis Warren? It's a game where Sark can pick his spots. Okay. Michigan's not going to score in every drive. That's a given. Okay. Their offense is not capable of that. And if they score in every drive, they're going to win by probably 30, but they're not going to score in every drive.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to be able to see some interesting matchups in the, wideouts versus the secondary. It's just a game. I honestly have no idea. I don't have a pick in this game as of right now. I think honestly, if I had to lean aside, it might be Michigan plus 7.5. If you can get that, I don't feel confident in it at all. Because obviously, we saw Texas going to Alabama last year and won by 10. And, stuff can happen at crazy, ends of the game in college football. And people come out with, 8 or 9 point victory and just absolutely screw you.
The parallels of that Texas Alabama game last year and game 2 and this one with Texas Michigan are pretty interesting because of last year you had an Alabama offense that had no clue what they were. Week 2 trying to figure out what they were with Jalen Milroe, and he wasn't anything like what he was at the end of the year in game 2 last year, and Texas took well advantage of that. Alabama was a little uncertain in the secondary early in the year last year, and Texas and those wide receivers, Eddie Mitchell and Xavier Worthy and Quinn Ewers, took advantage of that as well. And in this game, you've got a team with Michigan that's obviously has no idea what they are at the quarterback position and has no idea what they are on offense right now. They're trying to – I know their identity is going to be running the football. We know that. But, Michigan probably won't be the same team offensively this Saturday that they will be by week 10 because of whoever's going to be at quarterback is going to have a lot more games under their belt, a lot more experience. But it's just interesting that Texas is catching Michigan in a time like this where they don't have any clue what they are offensively at quarterback, just like Alabama last year. And you made a good point with that Texas D front, that Texas D line. They're more geared up this year to rush the passer with Trey Moore, the transfer from UTSA, and Colin Simmons. They line him up at kind of hybrid, like linebacker, edge rusher. He's a dude, by the way. Again, not all 5 stars are created equal. That guy was a 5-star coming out of high school, and he's a dude. He'll be playing on Sundays real soon, making a lot of plays on Sundays. But without Sweat and Murphy, can this Michigan D front hold up to the body blows in his Michigan's offensive line? That is the number one thing that I'm looking forward to seeing in this game is that. Because last year, if Texas would have been able to get past Washington in that semifinal game, I think that they were more well-equipped matchup-wise to play that Michigan team last year than Washington was because of Sweat and Murphy in the middle of that defense and how they would have put up a fight against that Michigan offensive line and been able to stop the run for Michigan last year. Yeah. I don't know that this Texas defense can do that. Maybe they can. We don't know that yet. That's what I'm excited to see because if they can hold up in the big house against Michigan and Donovan Edwards, there's going to be a lot of teams that they're going to play on this schedule. They'll be able to hold up against the run on those teams as well. So if you made me pick a side either way, with the fact that I think it's going to be a lower scoring game, and now that it's over a touchdown, I mean, it'd be tough for me to take Texas laying more than a touchdown. But like you just said, I could also see this being like a 24-13 type deal where they covered, win by 10 or 11. But if you made me pick a side right now, it'd be the under. Because I think that's the type of style of play that this game's going to be. And if Michigan wants to be able to be in this game, they need it to be under.
Yeah, and if you want to dabble in betting on this game, a couple nuggets for you here. This is the largest Michigan has been a home underdog since 2019 when they were home underdogs by 9 points against Ohio State. They lost that game 56-27. This is their largest. They've been an underdog in any game since 2022 Ohio State when they were +9 at Ohio State, and they won that game by 22. Largest they've been underdog against a non-conference opponent since Georgia in 2021. That was a semifinal. They were 7.5 dogs, lost 34-11. We know what happened there. If Michigan closes above 7.5, it would go back to 2012 against Alabama, where it was a +13. They lost 41-14. They've closed a 7-point home underdog just 5 times since 2007, and they haven't won a single one of those. Last win as a 7-point home dog came all the way back in November of 95 against Ohio State. So we're talking 29 years.
Yeah, so basically it sounds like when Michigan isn't the more talented team, that they've got problems. But also too, like some of those teams you just named, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. Those are the other types of teams that normally are that big of a favorite over them. So it makes sense.
Are you looking for the best deals on tickets? Look no further than SeatGeek. Whether it's a big game, a concert, or any live event, SeatGeek has you covered with all the best seats at the best prices. And right now, with the promo code Always Talkin Ball, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. That's right, $20 off just for being a fan of this podcast. Do not miss out on the action. Download the SeatGeek app and use promo code Always Talkin Ball for $20 off today. All right, let's move on. Primetime, ABC, 7:30. I got a feeling Herbie and Fowler will be here in Charlotte as Tennessee takes on North Carolina State in the Duke's Mayo Classic. Spread is currently Tennessee -8. We've got Nico in his second game and against his first FBS opponent, against the first Power 4 opponent, against an opponent that did not look good against Western Carolina. Josh Heupel, great coach. Dave Doran, great coach. You got to think, obviously, they won the game by 17. He was probably pissed all the way around about that game and how it finished out, how they looked through the first three quarters. They were in trouble there for the first three quarters, and they pulled away very late against an FCS opponent. So, SEC versus ACC matchup, I'm leaning orange in this one.
Yeah, I am too. Nico Iamaleava we talked about him a ton this offseason. I threw him out. I think you may have even agreed on it as far as we were talking about long shot dark horses for the Heisman that had, little, worth your bang for your buck. I think he was like somewhere between plus 15 to 1,800 in that range preseason wise, maybe even more. And he didn't do anything week one to make us think any different. He looked the part. This guy's different, man. He's different. And the fact that he's in Josh Heupel's offense with a coach like Heupel, Heupel again, last year was the first year that he didn't have a top 10 offense dating back to his days at UCF. He's always rolled out a top 10 offense for his total offense and scoring offense. And this is the first time that he's had a dude like this at QB. Hendon Hooker was a solid quarterback and did a great job, but he is not Nico Iamaleava. By far the most talented quarterback. I can't stress that enough. And I am excited to see what he's going to be like on this stage against a well-coached defensive type team like NC State. But I'm not sure, man, that this NC State defense is what it's been the past couple of years. That was a little bit of a question mark going into this year after they lost their leader to the NFL. It was like, didn't he win the Buckus Award or like Defensive Player of the Year Award or whatever that last year? Peyton Wilson.
Peyton Wilson.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, he was a dog at the middle linebacker there for NC State. But I just think, man, with the weapons that Tennessee has on the perimeter, with Heupel's offense, again, Tennessee also runs the football really well. We were high on Tennessee going into this year, and again, man, if you're not a fan of Tennessee and you watched what Nico looked like week one, I don't care who it was against. And you can watch a quarterback sometimes and you can see the type of talent just jumps through the TV or jumps off that field, and that guy's got every single bit of it. And
that's scary for Gators fans and Alabama fans.
It is. It really is. I mean, like I said, I'm a Alabama fan here. I'm not going to lie. Going to Knoxville and having to deal with that dude, and that Heupel offense. And notice, again, I haven't even mentioned the defense yet. You talked about it for the season, man. This defense has been underrated and just doesn't get talked about because of how good Heupel's offenses are and how just high-flying, electric, and fast, and the tempo that they play at. They don't talk about the defense much. And this is one of the best defensive lines in the country. And that right there is the number one thing that I think NC State may have an issue with going into this game. That's what jumped off the page to me against Western Carolina. Western Carolina actually last year was one of the best offensive teams in the FCS, and they lost their offensive coordinator actually to Pitt, and Pitt just put up like 40-something points week one in their game. Cade Bell, I think's his name. I mean, he's gone, but still, that's an offense that's pretty decent. But NC State's offensive line, every time I looked up, I had it on the second TV. That O-line was just on skates going backwards. Yeah. And if they can't block Western Carolina, they're not going to be able to block James Pierce and that 8 deep of defensive line that Tennessee's going to throw at them.
They got to be able to run the ball with Jordan Waters.
Right, they've got to. That's been NC State's problem the past few years. And when they brought in Jordan Waters, they thought that this was, we talked about it before the season, that we thought that was probably going to be something that we thought NC State was going to be able to do better, and this offense really needed, was to be able to run the football and be a little bit of a, complementary football with the quarterback. And that did not look good at all week one. And Grayson McCall started a little, again, it's new system, new team. They've got a lot of transfers trying to break in there. That this could be the team that you see that has that big jump from week one to week two. Dave Duran, after that first game, he was probably, like, if you got him behind closed doors, he'd tell you that, yeah, we didn't play as well as we wanted to, but he was able to get his team's attention because they didn't play well, but they still found a way to win. Grayson McCall got a lot better in that fourth quarter. I think they scored like 21 points or something in the fourth quarter in that game. But, yeah, man, I'm definitely leaning towards Tennessee in this game. I just think that they might be I think NC State just might be a little outclassed in this spot. But it's in Charlotte, and for anybody that's maybe thinking, well, it's right down the street from Raleigh, you'll see a lot of orange in that stadium.
I think there's going to be more orange.
I agree. And I think Knoxville to Charlotte's just a couple hours anyway. So, yeah, there is no home crowd advantage for NC State in this spot. It's for me, it's can NC State's offensive line hold up against that defensive front from Tennessee, because I will be surprised. I know this will be only Nico's third game that we've seen him start. We started the bowl game last year against Iowa, looked really good, looked like an alien in game one this year, how good he was. So if we think, if he's as good as what we all think he is, Tennessee's going to score points. I mean, it's rare that you're going to hold a Josh Heupel offense down. You're going to have to be able to score to keep up with them. So can Grayson McCall and this NC State offense block that Tennessee defensive line? If they can hold up against this D-line for Tennessee, we'll have a good one in Charlotte.
Yeah, it'll be close. I mean, if that happens, that the -8 for Tennessee, if you can find 7.5, that's a spot I'm heavily leaning towards. Again, haven't bet it yet. Again, follow us on social media, especially X or Twitter, and we put out some bets. If you want to full-on fade, that's perfectly reasonable as well, since we've been really good for the past couple of week 0 and week 1. We've been really good.
If you just want me to go ahead and say it, the first bet that I made of the week, when Tennessee was at 7.5, I took Tennessee -7 at -120. I just went ahead and grabbed that half point, and so that's what I've got. That's
what you do, though. That's what you would bet early on SEC teams against other conferences.
That didn't go well. I didn't go well last week. Did not go.
I believe you did that. You did that last year with Bama and Texas.
I did do that. So again, just fade me. Just full fade alert if you want to. I had a rough week 1, folks. So if you're a Tennessee fan hearing this, and you might just be like, Lance, come on, man, just take NC State and the points. But no, we're gonna get back on.
We'll always have Boston College plus 16.5.
There you go. Or my goofy teaser that I threw out that ended up winning. But yeah, I took Tennessee as a best bet of -7 at -120. So again, whatever you like the line at, that's so be it. But that's what I grabbed it at.
Okay. If you want to rep your favorite team with the comfiest and most stylish gear, look no further than Home Field Apparel. They've got the best vintage college designs that'll make you stand out on game day. And here's the best part. Use promo code ATB15 at checkout and you'll get 15% off your entire purchase. That's right, 15% off just for being a listener of this podcast. Do not wait. Head over to homefieldapparel.com and grab your gear now with promo code ATB15. Go support your team in style. Same time, 7:30 on NBC. Colorado taking on Nebraska in Lincoln. We talked about it, man. If you want to watch a crazy atmosphere at night, watch a game in Lincoln. As the sun's going down, especially, third, fourth quarter, that stadium lights go out. It turns red. They do the whole light show. It's pretty awesome. Line is 7.5. Dion and Colorado, they've been together for 13 total games now. 5 games they've been favorites. 8 games they've been underdogs. As a favorite, 4-1 straight up. And as underdogs, 1-7 straight up. Lone win came against TCU last year when they were 21-point underdogs in the very first game with all offseason to prepare. We saw how Colorado looked last week. Offense is crazy, stupid good. Defense is crazy, stupid bad. Um, one thing on Colorado. I was listening to Ari and Andy today on 3, and Ari Wasserman had probably one of the best takes and kind of just summed up what I thought about Colorado, but he summed it up so well. And we're advocates, for listening to other podcasts around here. Always, first and foremost, come to ATB. But, go listen to Ari and Andy on 3. He was talking about Dion and how he thinks Dion's soft and how it wasn't really anything against Dion. It was about the fact that he thought Dion would come in and build this program up and do it in a way that would be sustainable, which obviously isn't the case. He isn't going to high schools and he isn't, showing off his star power and recruiting. He's not doing that at all. He's just doing Band-Aid fixes in the transfer portal. And we see right now in Tallahassee, in his alma mater, how that's working out. If he puts together a good season, he might be the head coach in Tallahassee next year because Mike Norvell, it's not looking good for him because nobody's buying into that program, that Florida State tradition. The guys that they have there, they didn't come from high school to Florida State and say, I want to be a Seminole and I want to play in front of Doak Campbell Stadium. Colorado's not as storied as a program as Florida State, but they've got some rich history behind them. And to just be constantly repeating yourself and going into the transfer portal and trying to find guys and do patchwork to get to 7 or 8 wins as quickly as possible is not sustainable for long-term success, as he should be doing it through the high school ranks, recruiting the West Coast. He's right there. I mean, they have a winnable conference. If you would have just taken, the high school recruiting more seriously and tried to build on that first, they've got a winnable conference and they could do some damage in the Big 12 if they had 3 or 4, 5-star players in a top 20 class, but they don't. But like I said, they're a tradition, rich program. Again, they're playing another tradition-rich program. One of the blue bloods that you and I consider of college football. Yes, they're still blue blood. They've had they've fallen on some rough times here. There's no question about that. Haven't made a bowl game since 2016, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. But they've got a guy similar to Nico where, heck, he's only been there 1 year. Nico's there 2 years. Dylan Raiola he looked every bit the part last week. Matt Rule is a tough, hard-nosed coach. I think that he is a better football coach than Deion Sanders. I think you're crazy if you don't think that. But this is an interesting one, man, because can Nebraska, if they get a couple stops and the crowd gets into it early, they get some momentum, I think they're going to be off to the races, and this could get ugly for the Buffaloes.
How's Colorado going to block Nebraska's D front?
Yeah.
That's my thing. Like, Nebraska's D-line is nasty. And they were, I know, we're going to talk about last year, what happened in that game at Colorado. But
yeah, Jeff Sims playing.
Right, Jeff Sims ain't walking back through that door. If Nebraska puts the ball on the turf 6 or 7 times or whatever, then sure, Colorado's got a chance to win this game. But if Colorado can somehow find a way to give Shedeur Sanders time to distribute the football to those absolute freaks of athletes on the perimeter that Colorado has, because you were talking a minute ago about all the transfer portals and Dion not building the team or whatever. He has built this team really well on the perimeter and at quarterback, just nothing really on the lines of scrimmage. I know he got a couple
defense,
right, and on the defensive side too. Got a couple transfers from Pitt. One of them looked solid last game, against North Dakota State.
Deion Hayes.
Yeah, he looked solid. But again, only having a couple of dudes like that, I just, I don't think that's enough.
Colorado's best bet, I think, is passes within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage. Screen passes essentially. Get it out in space, throw it to the left side, have Jordan Seaton, your All-American freshman center, pull out. Try to get some blocks, try to get Jimmy Horn in some space, try to get Travis Hunter in some space. And you got to start off with those passes, especially in the first quarter, to try to take the crowd out of it a little bit.
Yeah, Colorado's going to have to be able to have some success in the running game. Don't think they can. And I think that they're going to roll Shedeur out more to try to get him outside the pocket a little bit to be able to try to neutralize a little bit of that Nebraska rush that I'm sure they're going to be able to get. And Tony White, the Nebraska defensive coordinator, is one of the best DCs in the country. The last 3 or 4 years, dating back to his days at Syracuse, I mean, he's put out top 20 stop units year after year, and did it last year at Nebraska. He brought a lot of that defense back. But the difference in this Nebraska team is without a doubt what they've got on offense now. Last year, they had so many injuries on offense. Now they're 3 or 4 deep at tailback. Jamal Banks, who transferred in from Wake Forest to wide receiver, he had a really good first game last week. Isaiah Nayer, who came in from Texas, who was a wide receiver at Wyoming before he went to Texas, was really good at Wyoming and Texas, and everybody was fired up for him to get rolling at Texas last year. He got injured like right out of the gate before he could even start and really playing at Texas, so we didn't really get to see him for the Horns last year. Well, he had a really good game, first game too, for the Huskers last week. And Tommy Fadone, the tight end for Nebraska, is one of the best tight ends in the country. He's finally healthy as well. He was like the top tight end in the country coming out of high school a few years ago. It came down to Alabama or Nebraska. He chose the Huskers, and he's a freak. He looks like an NFL tight end. He's like 6'5", 230, can fly, run, jump. He's your prototypical type tight end. But what I want to see is what's Raiola look like on the big stage? What's the true freshman in his second college career start going to look like under the lights, prime time, in a college football game that everybody in the world is going to be watching? And obviously, too, whether it makes sense or not, when Prime and Colorado come to town, the lights do get brighter because there's so many eyeballs on the game. And so, I mean, I'm definitely leaning, obviously, towards Nebraska in this game. That home atmosphere, that defensive and offensive line, that's another thing. Nebraska's offensive line is really good. The strength of this team are both on both sides of the line of scrimmage for Nebraska. Yeah. That was the strength of the team last year. But now they finally got some dudes at skill positions on offense that can really help this team out. Because they were one of those teams last year, if they could just move the ball at all, they could win some games. And they just couldn't because of all the injuries and quarterback play. And now they've got a 5-star talent at QB. And so, I don't know.
This is an absolute must-win for Nebraska, right?
Yes.
I mean, they have to win this game. If they do not, they're not going to be calling for Matt Rule's head, but the fan base will absolutely crumble, and especially if they lose like another one-possession game.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm just going to say that I said this to somebody the other day. They were talking about this Colorado team and just like, yeah, they can't stop anybody. And I said, yeah, I agree. Their defense and offensive lines don't look much, but the offensive line looks a little bit better, but not much. But if they can just find a way to give Shadur time, any game they play in, they're going to be a problem because of there's not too many teams that have guys like they do at receiver, at 4 or 5 deep at receiver, with Dallin Hayden at tailback and whoever that guy is they were running out there at tailback last week.
Offerdahl.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever you just said. But yeah, if they can give him time, Shadur's going to cook. And that could be a good one. But I'm definitely leaning towards Nebraska in this spot. Don't have an official pick yet, but the Huskers may show up as the week goes out.
Yep. Next game, battle for the CyHawk Trophy, 3:30. This game's on CBS, probably on CBS for the first time ever. Iowa State at Iowa. Iowa coming in 2.5, 3-point favorites.
Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson heading.
Brad Nessler, man, he's gonna be treated to a party at Kinnick in a high scoring affair, right? So the total for this game is 35.5. Those are like Army Navy levels right there. Yep. That's the second lowest total in the rivalry game in the last 20 years. 18 CyHawk games since 2005. The under is 15-3.
Golly.
So Iowa and the under is a solid bet always.
I mean, should we say Iowa State too? I mean, their game was 21-3 last week.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I've looked up some scores, and you saw a lot of 13-10s in past games of this magnitude. You saw 17-14, 10-7 might be likely. I got a bet in this game. I got Iowa -2.5 at -115.
Okay.
I took them because I just, home field advantage. I think Iowa's better on I think I would take Iowa on a neutral field over Iowa State. As much as we love Rocco Becht, right?
Yep.
We're a Rocco Becht stan podcast here.
Yep.
As much as we love Rocco, there's just something about Kinnick. There's something about that Phil Parker defense, that secondary they've got. I know they had a couple of linebackers banged up last week, so that's kind of concerning. But, dude, it's so hard to score against this team. And you mentioned the Iowa State game last week against North Dakota. We're not talking North Dakota State. We're not talking South Dakota State. We're talking just regular old North Dakota. And the game being 21-3. You only put up 21 points.
Yeah, they rushed for like
Dakota.
two. The problem with Iowa State last year, they couldn't run the football. Yeah. And they talked about that they were fixing that this year. Well, first game, they had like 20-something carries for about 80 yards.
It's not going to get it done against the Hawkeyes.
No, it's not. It's not. But also, not a lot of teams really run the football on Iowa. Iowa State does have a few guys on the perimeter that can play, and they, like I said, Iowa State played the most freshmen in the country last year, and the first most overall freshman snaps in the country. So I'm interested to see what this Tim Lester like. Does Iowa open it up a little bit on offense? They dropped 41 points in their first game. I know it was against an inferior opponent, but still, I don't care who it's against.
What are the message boards going to do if they come in and they put up 16 points in this game with Kirk Ferentz back on the sideline? Who's suspended for that first game.
Yeah.
And they put up 40 points. Like he comes back and they put up 16, they're going to call for Kirk's head, right?
No, they won't. But yeah, that's that would be funny. That of course Ferentz doesn't coach one game and they drop 40 points on. Yeah, but
yeah.
No, I think this is going to be a lower scoring game too. This is probably the most talent that this rivalry has had in a few years at the quarterback position between both teams.
Would you take the under 35.5?
I definitely wouldn't take the over. I mean, all that numbers you just gave with 15-3, and I mean, again, the Iowa defense is really the Iowa State's defense.
Maybe the Iowa offense is for real. Who knows?
Well, I don't know if college football is ready for that. The Hawkeyes offense to be a juggernaut. But yeah, I mean, Iowa normally plays the style of play they play against Iowa State. They just sit back and they're fine running the football, punting, and letting Iowa State make the mistakes. That's how they've won multiple times, like recently and stuff. So if Rocco Becht and Iowa State's going to put it in the air 30-plus times, because I just don't see how this is not going to be a low-scoring game.
Yeah.
Again.
Problem with that theory though is Iowa's lost their best weapon from last year, and that's their punter.
Yeah, it's true. He went to the NFL, didn't he?
Oh yeah, he's just launching bombs in the NFL now. So
yeah,
it's a low-scoring game. I just think at the end, Iowa's going to pull it out. I'm hoping it's not like a 12-10 and you screw me on the -2.5. Give me a 13-10 at least. We'll take Cade McNamara and the Hawkeyes for a bet there. But last game we're going to hit up, Arkansas at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State favored by 7.5, 8, so anywhere around there. It's actually dropped a little bit. It's at noon. I believe it's on ESPN.
Couple lower tiered SEC teams going on the road this week, getting around a tutty.
Yeah, Sam Pittman versus Mike Gundy. If there was ever, a coaches who look like their team mascots matchup, this would be it, right? I mean, Sam Pittman just looks like a Razorback on the sideline.
He looks like the head hog over there on the sidelines.
Mike Gundy just looks like he's going to shoot you, on a cowboy on the sideline.
Dude, how about Gundy doing his coach's show at the local senior citizen center, man?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less.
Fantastic, by the way. That's so awesome. Yeah. He's doing that.
Yeah. So last week, Arkansas just rips off Pine Bluff 70-0. They scored touchdowns on every single one of their 10 drives, even after taking out starters midway through the second quarter. That was enough time for Taylor Green to do some damage and kind of show what he's got, transfer from Boise State. Oklahoma State had a game where, you thought it was going to be a higher spread. It ended up being 9.5-10 against South Dakota State, the number 2 ranked team in the FCS. And they kind of handled them 44-20. Ollie Gordon did his thing. Alan Bowman did his thing. Deshaun Stribling did his thing on the wideouts. Question mark for Oklahoma State has always been their defense. They had a good offense last year. They've got that offensive line this year, but can the defense get some stops at crucial times? And they're going to be tested with Bobby Petrino's offense there from Fayetteville coming to town.
Yes, they are. Again, it's Arkansas Pine Bluff, but Taylor Green, his problem at Boise was he was just not very efficient. He would make some wow plays. Again, he's like 6'6", like 225, and like a freaking antelope out there running around. How just fast and athletic that this cat is. Can throw a football through a car wash and it won't get wet. But sometimes his accuracy was a problem. He made some throws last week. Again, I don't care who it's against. That it's still there's a receiver that's just barely a yard past the defender where quarterback's rolling one way, throwing it the other, and throws it 40 yards downfield like on a dart, where he couldn't have ran down there and handed it to him any better. That I don't care who that's against. Like that kind of talent jumps off the page. But if you're an Arkansas fan, the devil's advocate would be that I'm playing devil's advocate would be to this is, does the inefficient, erratic, may throw 2 or 3 picks on the road in a hostile environment, Taylor Green show up? But the talent that this guy has, and now that he's got Bobby Petrino coaching him, he might be a dude. He might do really well for the Hogs. And I love that they've got a running back that they replaced Rocket Sanders with Quindon Jackson. And he transferred in from Utah, and he looked really good week 1. Also, too, we say this a lot with some of these head coaches, man. It is normally head coaches that were play callers or offensive play callers or defensive play callers before they became a head coach. Like Sark at Texas. Sark, when he took the Texas job, one of Saban's first things he told him and advice he told him was, don't give up what you do best. You're great at calling plays. Call plays. And Sam Pittman doesn't call plays. He wasn't a great defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, or anything like that. He was known to be one of the best offensive line coaches in the entire country. He said after last year, with how bad that offensive line was, that he was going to step in and be a lot more hands-on with that bunch. And also, he's not the offensive line coach, but he's very hands-on with that group. And with Petrino calling plays, Arkansas could be a little bit of a surprise this year. They could. But this is a tough task, man, going into Oak State. This Oak State team bringing back with some of the most production, like I think the most production in the entire country. Alan Bowman looked solid his first game. Like you mentioned, some of the wide receivers there. Obviously, Ollie Gordon second's really good. Third, whatever he is. Ollie Gordon's had a really good game. But I think this is going to be a really, really highly contested, great football game. Isn't this a noon Eastern, 11 Central kick?
Noon kickoff, 11 a.m. Central in Stillwater.
And you know, like you normally say, the early kicks like that normally favor the road teams. We talked about it with Penn State. I'm not saying Arkansas's Penn State, but I'm saying Penn State, to give an example, Penn State when they went to West Virginia, that game not being at night definitely helped Penn State's chances a little more as far as that Morgantown not being even more lathered up than they would have been. But still, that was such a mismatch. They could have played that game on the moon, and it wouldn't have mattered. But yeah,
there's been a lot better teams than Arkansas going to Stillwater and have some trouble. And
I agree.
It's a weird place there, T-Boone Pickens Stadium. And Gundy is one of our favorite coaches, again, who does more with less, and he always has winning records. He's always in a bowl game. He's just a consistent coach, and he's got arguably his most talented team ever, and he's got a real shot to win the Big 12. Arkansas, it's a huge game for Sam Pittman. I mean, Sam Pittman can go into Stillwater and somehow pull this one out. You'd have to really, really screw up big time in SEC play to lose his job after that.
Yeah, and one more thing I want to touch on with this matchup is like Oklahoma State last year was so bad against the pass. And, you saw that rear its ugly head in the Big 12 title game. When Texas, I think they're still scoring touchdowns in that game. There's still receivers running open there in Arlington. But Arkansas's got some decent pass catchers that they've got. They've got their tight end back, Luke Haas, who was really good last year and got injured. Petrino coaching. I'm gonna take a shot here, man, with the Hogs at plus 7.5.
Shocker.
So I'm gonna take Arkansas plus 7.5. I'm not saying they're going to win outright. I don't know about that, but I think it's going to be a really good football game.
This is my shocked face. Who else out there is shocked that Lance has taken an SEC team on the road against a Big 12 team. Not me. It wouldn't be me.
It's fine, man. But eventually they'll win one of these games.
Yeah, you can't win one if you don't bet them all. So,
That's right.
It's time to sound the alarm, man. It's time to put some teams on upset special here. I'm gonna kick us off. I just got one right now. I actually have one for later, and it's a bet I've already made, but I'll save that for my best bets. Why not stay in the ACC with the ACC powerhouses? Where have we seen this before? Right? I mean,
Oh no,
a team like App State going on the road. Didn't they just do this a couple years ago? Went into College Station and got a victory. I'm not saying they can pull the outright upset, and I know Moose from Walk On Red Shirts is not going to like this at all, but App State getting 17 points on the road against Clemson. I know Clemson looked better at times during the Georgia game. Different parts of their team look good. I still do not have faith in Cade Klubnik. App State, they've always got a Power 4 game on their schedule. They've always got it circled. Okay. They're like a Boise State team. They just kind of have that moniker of like a giant killer. They could go in there. They could do some damage. We don't know how Clemson's going to react after that 34-3 beating that the Bulldogs put on them. But I'm just saying, watch out for the Mountaineers.
That would be if Florida State starts the season 0-2 and Clemson starts the season 0-2. Yikes!
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be wild. So I've got one here, and I'm going to head out to the desert to Arizona State, and Mississippi State getting almost a touchdown from Arizona State. I think that these two teams are extremely similar, where they have, the offensive brain power for both of these teams, for bottom-tiered Big 12 and SEC teams, is pretty spectacular. With Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State, he's been one of the best offensive coordinators in college football for several years now, and now he's obviously the head coach at Mississippi State. Then you've got Kenny Dillingham, and Marcus Arroyo is the offensive coordinator now for Arizona State with Kenny Dillingham. Those two together. Marcus Arroyo was with Oregon under Cristobal at one point. He's been in the past at Oklahoma State under Mike Gundy as an OC. He's been a really good offensive coordinator just about everywhere he's been. So those two together at Arizona State, I think there's going to be some points scored in this game. Blake Shapen at quarterback from Mississippi State, and some of the weapons they've got on that offense, and that Art Briles, Baylor type, spread the field, put your defense in space, and try to see how many plays we can run in a game. That gives a lot of defenses fits. I'm not sure that Arizona State is talented enough defensively to be able to just stop Mississippi State. I'm also not sure Mississippi State's talented enough defensively to stop Arizona State. So I think this is going to turn into a good old Big 12 after dark special. Late
out
night
in the desert, man. Things get crazy out in the desert.
Yeah, man. I got that. This is actually preseason wise. We were looking at some games. There are going to be these late night games. I said week 2, you got your Texas, Michigan, you got NC State, Tennessee, and all that stuff. That's all cute and all, but give me some Mississippi State. Give me the Fun Devils and Bully out there in the desert late at night, where things get a little weird and these offenses just start lighting it up late at night. And I think that's what we're going to get. We're going to get a lot of fireworks in this game, and I think Mississippi State is going to be able to score points. And I think that Arizona State should be on upset alert, because I'm not sure Arizona State should be favored by 7 points over anybody. So it's not an official best bet of mine. But again, we're looking for somebody with a line of 4 or more who we think has a chance to win the game straight up. And I think Mississippi State has a chance to win this game straight up. So that's I'm putting the Fun Devils on upset alert.
Absolutely love it. Love the Bulldogs pick there. Upset specials are great. I was close. Last week I had Georgia Southern against Boise State. If they could have just stopped Boise State once or twice, man, they put up 45 on them.
They covered, didn't they?
Yeah, they covered. And then I had Hawaii, outright upset over UCLA. UCLA eked out a 16-13 win. So covered both of those. So got faith in Appy State, got faith in Mississippi State. It's time now to get to our best bets. We should probably change this to our worst bets and kind of warn everyone that's a full-on fade alert. As we mentioned, we were pathetic last week.
Yeah.
It's just all there is to it, man.
Yep.
Boston College plus 16.5 saved us. If you followed us on Twitter, we put out a couple more that actually turned out to be some winners. I did Georgia minus 11.5 late on Saturday, so that was a winner. So it wasn't all bad, but the ones we put out on the pod last Thursday were rough. I've got more bets than you, so I'm going to start us off. And I've got a bet that factors into, and it fits into that category upset special. I don't know if they went outright, but they are a +4 or more, and that is the Army Knights. And
Against FAU.
FAU, man. FAU looked rough on Friday night against Aiden Childs and the high-flying Spartans. Take the over, Aiden Childs.
Well, we didn't listen to him. Surprised we didn't.
I think Army's the better team. I think they're going to be able to run the ball. It's tough for any team right after, especially a road game in Michigan State, to recover and prepare for that triple option or any type of gun option or any type of option the Army runs. When facing non-service academies, Army, Air Force, Navy, they're all good. ATS. They're all good against the first half spread. I like full game spread of +4, but if you want to take first half +2.5, be my guess, because in the last decade, Army, Navy, and Air Force are 60% against the spread as underdogs in the first half spread. So they were over 500 in 10 consecutive seasons. So I think this is one of those games that Army just, I think, grinds to a halt and could seem like a 28-21 type victory for the Knights. So I'm going to take Army +4 as my best bet.
Man, I think last year was early in the year. We started a little rough too, and then you went to the old. So you respected the troops and went to the service academy, and I think they
I'm always a troops guy.
Yeah,
USA baby.
That's right, man. I think they upset like UTSA or something, like straight up on the road. It was like 12-point dogs, and you had them. That was one of your upset specials and stuff. So hey, man, dance with the one that brought you, dude.
Service academies are one of the only things I'm good at. So.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So, I don't have a lot of bets I'm throwing out tonight, and I've already given you, I think I've given two. Yeah, I had Tennessee -7 at -120, and Arkansas at +7.5 against the Pokes at Oklahoma State. So that's two of mine. One of the other ones I'm going to give out. When you're struggling like you did week one, man, you know what you should do? You should take a team that was like a 8 zillion point favorite and barely beat Idaho last week. And now this week they're laying, I think it's up to 20 now.
Yeah, 19.5, 20.
19.5, 20. So the second bet that I placed this week after Tennessee -7, -120 was the Quack Attack, the Oregon Ducks, -19 against Boise. I must be crazy. I know. Boise's that darling that's supposed to be the Group of 5 playoff team. Everybody remembers Boise as the Giant Killers and stuff. And
dude, Boise's undefeated all time against the Ducks.
They are. I'm nuts, dude. What are they, 0-3, the Ducks against Boise? Yeah.
Byron Hout's out there getting punched by LeGarrette Blount.
Yeah, I remember that. That's crazy. But yeah, I'm going to lay the 19 with Oregon in this spot, and could be wrong, but I think they beat the brakes off Boise. And kind of like we talked about a minute ago, where the best thing you can have as a coach is where you're feeling yourself like Oregon was going into this year, getting propped up by everybody. You had people on game day picking them to win the national championship. You had Tyler here on ATB picking them as his only team to go undefeated in the regular season this year. Everybody was hyping the Ducks up this year, and rightfully so, because this roster is legit. And then they come out week one and lay an egg, but they still won. They still won the game. So now Lanning and this coaching staff can get this team's attention this week, get a little bit more focused. Got a bigger game here with Boise. Boise will have their attention because Boise, even though they are a Group of 5 team, that name still carries some weight.
Ashton Gianti.
He's a dude, man. He's a dude.
touchdowns and 267 yards.
Yeah, but how many points did they give up again against Georgia Southern?
45 points they gave up against Georgia Southern.
Got it. And I just think this Oregon offense is going to go up and down the field on this Boise defense. So I just think Oregon covers the spread here. I think they win comfortably and take care of business in this spot, and they get on track for the 2024 football season. And we welcome the Oregon Ducks to the 2024 season this week, and they take care of business against Boise. And I just want to remind folks that if you want to say Boise, the Giant Killers, yeah, people said that last year as well. Early in the year, they played Washington, and I think they lost about 8-7 against Michael Penix in Washington. So I think that's where we're going to have a similar situation like this in this spot. I like Boise, good football team, but I think they're just way out of class in this spot.
Yep. Next up, give me Fran Brown and the Qs.
I knew you were going to go to that well eventually.
Plus 2.5 at home. Home dogs. Our guys at Good Guys CFB. Home dogs. Syracuse plus 2.5. Syracuse looked rough last week. You were on them, I think 17, and of course they win by 16.
Dude, I had them 16.5.
Yeah, 16, and it's just
they win by
lose
16.
by the hook. They looked rough. Again, another team kind of like an NC State or kind of like an Oregon. They looked rough. They did not look great. That's exactly what Fran Brown wanted. They still beat Ohio. Georgia Tech has looked awesome, right? I mean, they beat Georgia State last week. Before that, they went to Ireland in front of everybody who was watching that, 8 million people, and they beat Florida State, the tough Florida State Seminoles. No. They beat a lifeless Florida State, okay? And I believe they were fortunate to beat Georgia State as bad as they did, which I think was 35-12, 35-13. Of course, I had Georgia State plus 21 in that game, and I lost by a couple points. But Georgia State had first and goal from the 1, ended up with no points. They had first and goal from the 3. They ended up with only 3 points on that drive. Tech had 2 touchdowns on fourth down conversions, and Georgia State also fumbled inside their own 20. And I just think they were fortunate to get the cover in that game. Maybe not fortunate to get the win, but they were fortunate to get the cover. So I just think them getting propped up by that win over Florida State to be favorites on the road against a team, I think they're very similar on a neutral field. And so I would give the edge to Syracuse at home.
Sneaky good game here, bro.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're talking about Brent Key, we've talked about Brent Key, dude. Like, you text me during that Florida State game, he is a G. Mm-hmm. I think those are your precise words, leaving out one. He's a G. And so, yeah, since taking over as interim head coach in 2022, that dude's 12-3 against the spread as an underdog, okay? He's got a bunch of outright wins. But guess what? When he's a favorite, he's 2-5 against the spread, all right? And this time he's a road favorite, which I don't know if that's happened since he's been coach at Georgia Tech. So I'm going to take Syracuse. I've been high on them all off season. Again, we talked about they have a Ohio State quarterback, which never happens. Probably one of their best quarterbacks since Donovan McNabb, So Kyle McCord's not a world beater, but I think he's good enough to beat Georgia Tech. So I'm going to take Syracuse plus 2.5.
Keep going. I think you've got a lot more than me.
Yeah, I'll go again. I already gave out Iowa minus 2.5. Another one I like. Last week, again, that Army FAU game, or that one with FAU and on the other side, they played Michigan State. Mr. Aiden take the over Childs. He proceeded to put up 16 points for Sparty. They looked really, really rough. I thought Maryland looked really good against UConn. I'm taking the Terps minus 8.5. Billy Edwards Jr. might be the real deal for Mike Loxley. He threw for over 3 bills. He's got a guy like Ty Felton to throw to. That's really good. Hemby at running back is solid. At Maryland, I think it's just a spot play for me. I know Michigan State's had, one extra day, but I just think Maryland minus 8.5 when I think they should be close to a 12 or 13 point favorite in my mind. I think they take care of business. I mean, Jonathan Smith is a heck of a coach, but I think we saw it in that FAU game. They're going to struggle this year.
Yep.
That was a home game, and if I like Army to cover against FAU, I'm for sure going to like Maryland to hang around with Michigan State. Another one I like too, I'll go one more here. We talked about the big G5 game this week, UTSA at Texas State. Love me some GJ Kenny. Love Jordan McLeod, the transfer from JMU. Did not love their touchdown victory over Lamar last week. So I'm taking Jeff Traylor. There's nothing else to do. Take Jeff Traylor on the road, plus 1.5.
Yeah, that line's going that way too. Like there's some money coming in on UTSA, no doubt.
When we recorded on Sunday night or Sunday afternoon, it was plus 2.5. It's down to plus 1.5. I jumped on it there. I think they're the better team. I think if it was a neutral field, they might be favored. I just think that Jeff Traylor's got a more proven track record, and I've got UTSA to win the American Conference this year, so I think they're pretty solid. So give me UTSA plus the points on the road. When it's that close on the road, road team I think has a pretty solid chance.
All right, well, I want to go to an SEC battle in Lexington, and old South Carolina and Lenora Sellers and Rocket Sanders and that offense struggled week 1 against Old Dominion. And this Kentucky team with Brock Vandegrift at quarterback and Mark Stoops' defense, and some of the players he's got on that defensive line, got NFL-type caliber players on that D-line. I just think that South Carolina is going to have a lot of trouble moving the football in this game. And I think this is a spot where I think Kentucky will control the ball on offense. Like the receivers that Kentucky's got like 3 or 4 receivers. It's been there for 3 or 4 years that have been really good since they've been in Kentucky. Took a little bit of a step back last year, but I just think overall Vandegrift fits this offense really well at quarterback, former 5-star talent that transferred in from Georgia. Some of the defensive talent, like I said, overall that Kentucky has, and Dumas Johnson that transferred in from Georgia at middle linebacker. I just think that Kentucky just has a better football team, and I'm going to lay the 10 with Kentucky here, and I think Kentucky takes care of business and covers the spread in Lexington against South Carolina as a 10-point favorite.
Okay, I'm going to join you. I got the Cats minus 10 as well.
All right.
I am most likely going to be on Tennessee with you as well. There's a chance if I get bored on Saturday night, I might bet that Nebraska-Colorado game. Yeah. Oregon's really enticing too. I mean, you make solid points about just that Washington game last year, and Lanning's probably been chewing those guys out all week.
That line a week ago was like 24.5, 25.
Yeah.
And then it opened up 19. Yeah. And now it's, like you said, steaming up. I got it at 19. As soon as I saw that line at 19, I said, gimme. They may not get there, but I'm just taking a shot at that. I don't have it at the moment, but keep an eye out on the social media. I may take your Vampires, BYU, on Friday night, getting 11.5 right now at SMU. I just don't think that SMU – I just think it's too many points. I like SMU. But I just think it's too many points right now. But I got to take a deeper dive into this BYU team a little bit. But again, I'm right now. It's possible that might make our social medias this week. So you need to follow us on Instagram and X to see, because we put our plays out on there. And if you're wondering why I called them the Vampires, Tyler threw out like the greatest like trend and stat and sports college football podcast history last year about BYU in night games, that when the game is being played and the sun goes down, that what BYU is against the spread. And then, of course, in our ATB fashion, I think they lost their next 2 night games after that. But still, that really is ridiculous what they've been against the spread in the last, like, whatever, under Kalani Sitake when games are at night. And the outlier for BYU in Kalani Sitake's career so far was last year. They were not good last year, obviously, but every other year since, they've been really good under him. So I got to take a deeper dive into that game before I'm willing just to go ahead and just throw it out. But I'm taking a look at him right now, plus 11.5 as a possibility.
Yep, and I will most likely be on the Mississippi State Bulldogs plus 6.5, and I've got one more for you. And there's just no way that I am believing that as good as he is, as an underdog against the spread that Justin Wilcox is going to be able to go and take his team into Jordan-Hare Stadium and hang within 13 points. Cal may be good. They're going to have to prove it to me. They're going to have to go on the road in the SEC against the new look Auburn Tigers, who Hugh Freeze is calling plays this year. You can tell if they get up, he's not letting off the gas unless they go to 10-minute quarters.
What time is that game?
Gosh, I want to say it's.
Sorry, I put you on the spot there.
Right
yeah, we can look. It's our podcast. We do what we want.
3:30 on ESPN2,
Okay.
So it's not a night game, but still 3:30 on ESPN2. Auburn right now is 13. I'll probably end up taking that very soon because I'm afraid it's going to get up to 14 and over 14 and a half. Cal was only up by 1 point last week on UC Davis at half.
Yeah.
And UC Davis, they're an FCS team. Okay. They want to run the ball. That's what they want to do. They have one of the best, top 12 running backs in the country in Jaden Knott, right? That's who we had one of our lists come out this summer. It's going to be tough to do. Mm-hmm. It's really going to be tough to do. And if they can't run the ball, it's going to be in Fernando Mendoza's hands. And that's not good for anybody. And I think, Peyton Thorne, you've been high on him all off season, Mr. Lance Freeze here. And, he's just,
never gonna live
he put up what, 6 or 7, they put up 6 or 7 touchdowns through the air last week, him and Hank Brown. So I just think they continue. I mean, it's just I think it's a perfect warm up game for conference play for Auburn. Is like, it's still a Power 4 opponent, but it's a weaker Power 4 opponent. They get a little more tests than they got last week against Alabama A&M. I think it has the potential to be Auburn by 28, 30 points.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward.
I mean, how do you think? You think Cal's going to keep it that close?
No, I don't. I mean, obviously the trends with Wilcox or whatever, but you know what I think about trends, what happened 10 years ago in games and stuff. I just, again, I'm excited to see what this Auburn receiving core looks like. I know Cal, and they're just whatever Power 4 opponent, but I'm looking forward to see what they look like this week.
Yep. Well, that's it. That's week 2. A couple marquee matchups: Texas, Michigan, Tennessee, NC State, and then just a couple. A lot of like mid-tier matchups. It's not if you go to K Ford's website, watchability scores on there. It's not going to be a lot of high scores. It's going to be a lot of average scores. And I think we're going to be in for a nice week 2 after week 1 last week. So again, we thank you guys for listening. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Follow us on everything. Go to SeatGeek. Go to Home Field Apparel. Get your gear. Get your tickets. Use our promo codes that are on our social media pages. And we will see you guys on Monday.